One day, the spirit pet attacked, using all of its magical power. There was a powerful explosion, indicating that this pet's power was immense. But just a moment later, the creature was defeated. The man then said that this pet had also failed to live up to his expectations. All he wanted was a strong pet, much stronger than this one. Suddenly, a subordinate approached him. He informed Mr. Sia that the young master of the Chu family had been brought to the Palace of Nightmares. The man was satisfied, as he had almost completely forgotten about it. There was no need to waste any more time here, so he would leave immediately. At that moment, the Palace of Nightmares was in turmoil. The sound of blows from a tail beating a man echoed through the room. The main character was being tortured. The girl who was doing this told the dear Chong Mei that if he dared to escape, she would beat him to death. The blows from the whip were causing more and more damage. But the guy didn't react much to them. He just lay there, glaring at his tormentor. Soon they announced that Mr. Jia himself had arrived. The girl claimed that the boy from the family had tried to escape. She took it upon herself to whip him. The hero was outraged by this. Mr. Sia approached the boy and told him that there was no point in running away. He didn't care how distinguished he had been in his family in the past. After all, he had offended someone he shouldn't have. And since the Palace of Nightmares had taken on the task of killing him, he clearly had no chance of getting out of there alive. However, he was responsible for carrying out the task. Before he could begin, someone canceled the operation without permission and deprived him of his pleasure. A blade soon appeared at the girl's neck, and she tried to justify herself. You understand that you made a mistake, but no one listened to her, and she was killed in an instant. Mr. Sia said that in this place, every life has its price, and the Yang family, without hesitation, gave up the treasure of their clan. Kneeling down and begging him to take action and kill the young man, the nightmare continued. His life was more valuable than that of the girl. No one would even mourn her death. Chong Mei was 15 years old, the third son of the Chu family from Luochen, and also its future heir, because of the premature signing of a contract with a high-level spirit pet. The first and second spirit contracts were already taken, and the first spirit pet betrayed the main character and escaped. He became the subject of jokes in Luochen. He could have hidden behind his father or brother, being the offspring of a noble family, and spent his whole life doing nothing. But the decline of his family led to him losing the protection of his elders. Chong Mei was outraged. If he wanted to beat him, let him beat him. There was no need to stir up trouble here. Mr. Zia said he would kill him, but not now. Although he did not know why he dared to sign a contract with a high-level spiritual pet, it could not be denied that, even though he was stupid and lacked courage, Xie Guanghan enjoyed tormenting fools recklessly more than anything else. The young man saw something strange and asked what it was. The old man opened the magic box and declared that he would let him demonstrate the value of his life. As he could see, he was a master of spiritual pets. Chong Mei couldn't believe it. A master can control spirit pets and order them to do anything. However, one type of spirit pet is an exception. Nightmares are evil spirit pets, and they are special creatures among their kind. On top of that, they can also enter into spiritual contracts and fight for humans. However, they possess the terrifying power to devour the souls of their own owners. If the master's soul power is weaker than that of the nightmare, the pet will simply devour him. To grow, a nightmare must consume the souls of hundreds of people as food. A white nightmare is called a nightmare among demons. To develop, it needs 1,000 corpses to lay its foundation. The boy should be proud that his weak spirit will become food for this nightmare. As the spirit approached, Chong Mei was indignant that this gentleman was a scoundrel. The master, in turn, thought that once the white nightmare entered the body, he could conclude a spiritual contract from the outside. However, this process is very painful and makes it impossible to breathe. So most people suffocate and die or die of heart failure during the process. The spirit began to gradually enter the main character's body. The guy couldn't hold it back, so he kept letting his body go. And soon, the remnants of the spiritual nightmare were over. Then the master of spiritual pets used the spiritual contract. Chong Mei's body was pierced by intense pain. He felt he couldn't cope. Why should he endure this? He wouldn't just give up. He decided for himself that he didn't want to die and refused to give up. Soon, the entire procedure was over. Therefore, the spiritual pet master's subordinates headed toward the young man. They discovered that the 3 holes had widened. They also informed their master that his heart was not beating. Soon, they came to the conclusion that Chong Mei was dead. Master Xia was not surprised. He only said that the white nightmare would get rid of the body after consuming it. In principle, he thought he would be able to surprise him, but it seems that this did not happen. That's what he thought until the moment the guy started coughing. The master of spiritual pets couldn't believe it. One of his subordinates shouted that the boy was going crazy. Immediately, the hero announced that he had not yet taken what belonged to him. Therefore, he did not understand why he should die with such humiliation. The master was indeed confused for a moment. Then he smiled and told his subordinate to take the boy to the Islands of Nightmares. At that moment, no one understood what he wanted to do with him. After some time, the boy saw something that looked like the sea. He was curious where they were taking him. The place seemed really strange. The boy didn't know what it was, so he asked what kind of place it was. The local creatures, which looked like plants, were amazing. The driver simply sailed away from the guy and wished him luck. On the mountain nearby was a strange building surrounded by mountains. The young man was a little confused, not understanding what the hell this place was. Mr. Sia thought that Chu-Mu had better not die, because his trials were only just beginning. After a while, the main character of the series stood on the edge of a cliff and looked at the raging waves. 3 days had passed since he arrived on the island. During this time, the guy got to grips with the situation he found himself in. This Island of Nightmares is a camp where the Palace of Nightmares cultivates nightmares. They gather young men and women from all over the place to serve as vessels for storing nightmares. Chu-Mu must constantly provide the nightmare inside his body with the power of his soul for it to grow. Once there is not enough for it, it will easily devour the boy's soul. Therefore, he must undergo trials to survive and become stronger. While thinking about this, the boy heard a girl's voice. She was begging someone to let her go. The main character became curious about who was talking there. He saw that a man had grabbed the girl, and she was begging him to let her go. But the guy told her not to resist, saying that if it weren't for her beauty, they wouldn't even pay attention to her. She, of course, caught the eye of his brother Joe, so she should consider it an honor. Who doesn't know that Joe is the strongest of the nightmares sent to the island for testing? Only by following him will she have a chance to survive, and she is given that chance, but she refuses. The main character noticed that these were the ones sent to the island. Soon, Joe himself appeared. He offered this sweet girl to follow him, because he is the one who can protect her. This is a very cruel island of nightmares, so it's time for her to stop pretending to be untouchable. The girl didn't want to obey him, so she just bit his finger. Joe screamed that it hurt him very much, and the girl said she would rather die than grovel before a scumbag like him. This greatly angered the man. So, rushing to attack her, he shouted that she was tired of living. But suddenly someone attacked him, throwing a stone right at his head. A large bump immediately appeared. Joe didn't understand who had done it and demanded that they come forward immediately. It was, of course, Chu-Mu who was involved in these dirty deeds. While there was commotion below from what had happened, he sat and played with stones. He thought there was no need to stir up trouble. When a fight starts, you have to be the first to strike. He would rather die than grovel before a scumbag like that. Those words stuck in his head. This girl really holds herself with dignity, and she has a strong character too. Thinking about this, Chu-Mu continued his attack. He acted rather unconventionally, throwing rocks from the cliff, and they bounced off each other. Thanks to this, he attacked the guys who had been harassing the girl all this time. The girl thought that the man who saved her by ricocheting stones at Joe and his henchmen, preventing them from finding out her location, was very cool. The leader of the gang was furious. He didn't care who had attacked them. He would make him regret daring to provoke him. The other gang members were excited, probably thinking that their brother was going to summon his spirit pet. That scoundrel who had attacked them was now a corpse. Joe was really going to do it, but suddenly there was a noise. The guy noted that it was a signal to gather. That scoundrel was lucky. He wouldn't go after him just yet. After saying this, Joe simply turned around and left. The girl was happy. She was saved. She guessed where her savior was, so she turned her head to the side. And there, on the slope, she saw a figure. It was Chu-Mu, the one who had saved her. At that time, many people were gathering in the arena of the Island of Nightmares. The workers told the people to move faster if they didn't want to die like a bunch of nobodies. Joe and his companions were there. He was still furious. If he caught the scoundrel who had attacked them, he would definitely kill him. He had no idea that the main character was behind him. At that moment, Chu-Mu noticed the chicken leg. That's strange. Why is it even there? Soon, he heard why it was there. The others around him were talking about how hungry they were and how they wanted to eat. It was a chicken leg, looking very appetizing, and they were eager to try it. The fat man headed toward the food, but in an instant his head was severed. Those present were shot dead by the horror that permeated their bodies. The one who killed the big man asked if he had allowed them to move. If the others obeyed him just once more, they would follow him. Those gathered here were simply losers, and the subordinates of the Master of Spiritual Summoning were staging hunger games. There were about 100 people here now, and he could only allocate rations for 50 people. So if they wanted to fill their stomachs, let them start fighting. The man will kill them all if they don't start doing so. After all, the sharp nightmares don't need such scum. Soon a shot rang out, signaling the start of the battle. It was announced that only 40 buns and 1 chicken leg could be distributed. Everyone started fighting for food, some grabbing whatever they could get their hands on. But suddenly Zhou attracted everyone's attention. He declared that all this food now belonged to him, Zhou Shengmo. His subordinates also fought. He dared to steal food from his brother. He clearly wanted to say goodbye to life. The workers talked among themselves about this man. He was physically stronger than the others, and it seemed that not all of them were scum. Training had begun only 3 days ago, and he had already defeated his younger brother. So he was quite capable. While these people were chatting with Zhou, someone took him away. He was outraged and demanded that they give him back the chicken leg. He dared to steal his best food, and for that, he would kill him. The girl also did not expect this to happen. The others called this guy crazy. He dared to steal food from Zhou Shengmo himself. He must have really been tired of living. At that moment, the main character simply bit off a piece and ran away. And this made everyone else even more surprised. The master's subordinates laughed, saying that this young man was even more interesting. Zhu was outraged. How dare he disobey him in public? He was definitely going to kill him for that. The guy's subordinates had already attacked Chu Mu. He simply dodged several powerful blows. The recently rescued girl thought that this couldn't be allowed to happen. She had to help him. But the main character simply told her to stop. The girl assumed that he had a backup plan if that was the case. Zhou asked if he regretted it, but it was already too late. However, the guy just swallowed the chicken leg, and after he had his fill, he noted that he almost threw up, and that would have been a waste. His new acquaintance couldn't believe it. Chu became even more angry. The workers laughed. He was a very interesting guy. Surprisingly, he even swallowed the bone. The boss said that since the jackpot had been eaten, it was time to start the real game. Thus, he began to use some kind of spell. It was related to summoning, and a spiritual creature began to appear around him. This creature turned out to be a ferocious and powerful wolf. This monster was from the world of monsters, a beast related to the wolf family and a spiritual pet. Those present knew the power of this creature, so they were frightened. The spiritual beings summoned said that they intended to starve these creatures to death within a week. For food, they would attack any living creature they could handle without hesitation until they killed it. Today's training was physical preparation. The participants would have to fight the ferocious spirit pet on their own. In the next training session, they would only need 50 people, which meant that half of them would die during today's trial. So let them enjoy the joy of death. Only those who have been tempered between life and death have the right to enter their temple of nightmares. Soon, powerful ferocious wolves rushed into the attack. Some people were immediately struck down. As a result, the weakest were killed right at the start. Of course, after dealing with the first wave of people, the monsters did not stop. They continued to attack until they could reach the rest. Most simply ran away and begged for mercy. The summoners responded with laughter and joy. Chu Mu thought about how, when he was still in his family clan, he had learned a lot about various spirit pets. Judging by the color of their fur and the size of their fangs, they had grown to about level 8. A ferocious 8th level wolf is no match for a strong adult man with a machete. To survive, it is not worth fighting them head-on. You must find a way to avoid their attacks, until 50 people are killed. Therefore, the main character must dodge and stall for as long as possible. Suddenly, someone kicked him. It was, of course, Zhou, who had recently harbored a grudge. This guy dared to humiliate him in public, which means he became his enemy and will die. Chu Mu saw the mouth of a huge monster in front of him. Fortunately, he managed to dodge the attack. But he was furious at Zhou Shengmo. The hero also grabbed the jaws of the monster that was trying to kill him. Because of this, he managed to defeat it. But other wolves also began to surround him. A moment later, reinforcements arrived. It was the girl he had recently saved from Zhou Shengmo himself. She attacked the ferocious creature's head with a wooden stick. She did not inflict serious wounds, let alone death, on the creature in this way. She only drew its attention to herself. After that, the monster attacked her. She was thrown a long way away. Zhou was surprised by what had happened, wondering why Ting Yu had helped a stranger. Could it be that Chu Mu was the man who had attacked him that morning and saved her? At that moment, the main character thought that he didn't want to die so easily. If that was the case, he wanted to live. At least if he was going to die, it wouldn't be at their hands. After all, he still had unfinished business, so he needed strength. He was willing to give up absolutely everything it took to become stronger. Everyone who dared to harm him would pay. Something had changed in Chu Mu's body. he had become more ferocious. And thanks to that, he grabbed the wolf's neck and threw it away. And with that, of course, he destroyed it with his great strength. Those present couldn't believe that he had killed the king of the ferocious wolves. Where did he get such strength? Even to the naked eye, it was clear that the main character had become completely different. The leader of the group thought that this child was unusual. He asked the others to count the number of survivors. When they did, it turned out that exactly 50 survivors remained. When the leader ordered all the ferocious wolves to be called back, the test was over. The others looked at the main character's body and did not understand what the white mist around him was. How could he have become so strong? The workers were talking about just that. If one of them was not mistaken, then the nightmare in his body was a white nightmare. They figured out that he was the very vessel sent by Mr. Sia. Joe was indignant. What did white nightmare mean? Why was such a high-level nightmare parasitizing his body? Wasn't this the Blue Nightmare's training camp? At that moment, Chumu felt his heart tighten, and he was in great pain. However, the pain did not even come from him or his heart. The white nightmare was devouring his spiritual power. As he pondered this, the young man lost consciousness. After some time, Mr. Zia was informed of what had happened. That's how it all happened, and after that, Chumu lost consciousness, and that was the end of it. The master was surprised. Did they really say that this guy was capable of activating the power of a nightmare? I wonder what level the white nightmare in his hotel is at right now. It turned out that the nightmare level had been raised to the 2nd level. It seemed that in order to survive the trial, he had overused the power of his soul and forced the white demon to protect him. It's a pity that such a trick can only be used once. Due to the overuse of soul power, the white demon will very soon rise to the 3rd level. His subordinates couldn't believe it. The soul power required for a 3rd level white nightmare is dozens of times greater than that of a 2nd level one. There was no way this child could handle something like that. So it seemed that this young man wouldn't live long. The master also felt that he would soon have to look for a new body. After a while, the worker informed those present that they would pretend to be on the verge of death. Let the children take these 50 corpses and throw them into the sea right now. Let them get moving and not slack off. In the end, these people began to do so. Joe, like the others, was outraged. Didn't they just need to train? It was unclear why they were being given such a task. Ting Yu was very sad and cried. Chumu asked her to calm down and save her strength. These people would still torment them again. After finishing with Joe's body, the monsters left, and the others went to eat the remains. The main character suggested to his friend that they throw the body a little further away. This would be considered a sea burial, thus giving him a proper funeral. Soon, the body of the man they had been dragging was thrown into the sea. The workers at the Palace of Nightmares were informed that all the bodies had been removed. One of them asked Tin Yu why she was so sad. She could only go on living because these children were dead. This wasn't a game of mother and daughter. Everyone needed to calm down. Starting tomorrow, they would be able to move freely around the island. This island was full of spiritual pets suitable for them, so they could choose them themselves. After signing a spiritual contract, let them train on this island. In 3 months, they will have a duel, and the 10 best will go to another island to continue their nightmare training. As for the rest, they will be thrown into the sea to be eaten by sharks. Of course, they should not ignore the nightmare inside their own bodies. If they did not increase their spiritual strength, they would become pitiful food for him in no time. For now, they should return to their homes and rejoice that they had managed to survive. All they could do was regret, because tomorrow they would face a new test of death. In addition, he would like to give them one more piece of advice. Not to go into the interior of the island, because for them, it is a death trap. Some time passed after this conversation. The main characters were upset because while dodging the ferocious wolves, they had seriously injured their backs. They needed to get treatment quickly, or it would be bad. Suddenly, he felt something poured on him. It was the fat man who pretended to accidentally splash him. Joe was also nearby. He noted that the guy was lucky to be alive. The kick he received in the arena had actually helped him. Otherwise, he would have had to endure the pain of his soul being devoured by a white demon. He told his subordinates to leave and let this brother wait for his own death. The main character said nothing in response, but at the same time, he thought that one day he would kill him with his own hands. In his room, he undressed and saw a serious wound on his back. Unfortunately, he couldn't reach it. Suddenly, a girl entered the room. She said she had come to help him. Chumu was confused as to why she was there. He hadn't expected her. Tin Yu explained that she had been assigned this room and that they would now be neighbors. She asked if she could help him apply some ointment. In the end, the guy agreed. And as he did so, he thought that in 3 months, only 10 people would be left alive, and this was not something to be taken lightly. This girl seems weak if she hasn't revealed all her cards to reduce the competition. She could take advantage of the opportunity to get rid of him, by the way. While Chong Mei was thinking about this, the shadow spoke and gave her name. She mentioned that he had helped her on the beach, so she was grateful for that. The hero replied that he had only chased away a few annoying flies. Yes, she had also helped him, so he considered them even. Then his companion told him that her blue nightmare was growing very quickly. In 10 days, it would reach the 3rd level. Therefore, she was afraid that her soul's strength would not be enough to hold it back, and it would consume her soul. Chong Mei simply told her to give it her all if she didn't want to die. All the test subjects on the island probably had nightmares at around the 2nd level, and every time a nightmare rose to the next level, the amount of soul power it consumed increased significantly. If the soul power is not increased in time, the donor will be consumed alive. This will happen because there will not be enough soul power to support the nightmare. The white nightmare inside the guy has a terrible appetite. The girls were surprised that Chong Mei didn't seem worried at all. Was he really that confident in his own abilities? The number of high-level and skilled spirit pets on the island must be limited, so she suggests capturing their own pets as soon as possible. If they get a defective spirit pet, even after 3 months of thorough training, it will be very difficult to make it into the top 10. Therefore, she plans to go in search of a spirit pet soon. The hero simply replied that he understood and wished her luck. Tin Yu suggested that they team up. Chong Mei replied that she should go alone. She probably didn't want to live in the same room with a stranger because she would meet a kind pet. The girl objected. If everyone refuses to cooperate, how will they defeat the spiritual pet and capture it? She can't handle it alone, can she? Chong Mei explained that she should know that they were a band of robbers. Without the physical advantage of Zhou Shengmo, she would have to cooperate with others. When forming a team, no one would dare to compete with him for a good pet. So there was nothing to think about. There was a struggle of interests everywhere, and their rivalry between teams would clearly result in casualties. Therefore, if she wanted to get her own good pet, it was better to act alone. Ting Yu simply thought that he was one of the few good people on the island of Blue Nightmares. They will be able to cooperate on the next task, but it will only be more difficult. By helping each other, the chances of success will be much higher. The main character simply refused, but his companion did not understand why. He explained that he couldn't be trusted either, and the same applied to her. Good people are the most worthless on this island. He helped her once, and couldn't promise to help her again. When the day came for them to fight, he wasn't going to be merciful. The guy was grateful to her for the bandage, and if she was injured in their next encounter, he would help her too. Instead of relying on other Easterners, she will become stronger herself. He suggests that she try. Despite the harsh wording, the girl liked it. She hadn't expected him to want her to become stronger. At that moment, a search for spiritual pets began in the surrounding forest. Zhou Shengmo stood near a huge snake. He asked his subordinate to block the snake's path. It was essential not to let it escape. He wanted to see if it was suitable to be his future pet. His subordinate told his boss that if he didn't like it, he could give it to him. Suddenly, before he could finish, the main character pushed him. The guy was outraged by this behavior. Was he blind? Chong Mei simply walked past. Then the guy told the boss that the man had gone towards the interior of the island. But hadn't the manager said that this was a death zone? So why did he go there? Did this make Joe smile? It seemed like this boy had completely given up and was looking for a suitable place to die. At that moment, the main character just kept walking toward the forest. Before entering the forest, he stopped and looked up. But he didn't stay there for long. He simply continued on his way, regardless of the dangers that awaited him there. A caterpillar is a small creature that almost no one hunts, but a dragonfly is a more delicious morsel. It was flying near a pond, and there were fish swimming in the pond, which ate the dragonfly. But the food chain did not end there. Someone else wanted to eat the fish too. This creature is a green bird. It has wings like the wind. It is a spiritual pet of the 4th level. It was this creature that the main character was targeting. When the bird arrived at the right place, he set a trap. Thanks to this, the green bird fell into his net. Chong Mei knew that green birds had few rivals at the same stage. This meant that it would easily win the preliminaries. And fortunately, he managed to catch it. Now it was time to use his own strength. The guy used his 4th spiritual contract, which was a grab. The spiritual chain that was supposed to bind the creature appeared around its neck. But the bird did not want to obey this man, so the guy had to use the bluebird's skill, the squall. As soon as the ring around the spiritual pet is completely formed, the capture will be considered successful. He didn't expect her to be so strong. Great. With this, the probability of victory is even higher. Suddenly, the caterpillar that no one had seen split in half and landed on the guy's head. He was outraged and didn't expect it. What a strange insect. What did it eat to get so fat? The caterpillar was indignant and enraged, hiding. She considered the guy a threat, so she splashed some liquid on him. It was something like thick cobwebs, which prevented Chong from seeing anything. This sticky web was disturbing. If he didn't drain his soul power now, his soul ring would be destroyed. Moreover, the branch on which the trap was located began to crack. The main character was clearly not happy about this, and the bird almost broke free. In the end, a powerful stream of energy was directed straight at the guy. He couldn't hold back his own power, and the contract was broken. The green bird, which was almost in his hands, broke free, and thus, the capture of this bird was completely failed. Chong knew that the green bird was cunning. Once you lose, it won't allow you to make a contract again. And all because of this little caterpillar, it even wants to escape. He'd better answer him right now and tell him how they were going to compensate him for everything that had happened. The tiny creature began to move strangely. The guy asked what it was doing. Let her not even think that he would fall for it if she pretended to be nice. And why was she crying? Suddenly, something very heavy landed not far from the guy. He noticed a strange noise. Something incomprehensible flew past his head. Unbelievable, it's Mandy the monster. This creature is really dangerous. Spiritual pets of the 9th level are not vegetarians. Therefore, the most important thing for the guy now is to escape. The monster he encountered seemed to have a rather good-natured disposition. Strange, why did it suddenly go berserk? The reason for this became clear to the guy very quickly. It was a fiery, cloud-like creature hanging from Mandy's tail. How did this little pet dare to challenge Mandy's monster? The little fox was soon thrown aside by the large, spiritual monster. Blue eyes are a characteristic feature of the blue star fox. Could this beast be a half-breed? Half-breeds are rare, supreme pets, but it was facing the monster Mandy. Chong even began to think about how to save it. And then he saw that very caterpillar on his neck. He grabbed it and directed it toward the monster Mandy. He declared that the caterpillar must spit in the monster's eye, or he would throw it into its mouth. The little creature had no choice but to obey. Soon, it had accumulated enough sticky web. It released it directly toward the large monster. As a result, Mandy was confused and couldn't react. Chong, in turn, did not lose his composure and quickly ran to the little fox. It was necessary to hide while the monster Mandy got rid of the web. And also, of course, to conclude a contract with the fiery cloud fox. The half-breed spirit pet mutant is one of the top 3 in terms of rarity and abilities. In turn, the blue-eyed fox did not want to go with him at all. She scratched the guy's arm until it bled. The main character asked her to stop struggling. If he decided to fight him, she would die. The fox continued to scream hysterically, begging him to let her go. It seemed as if she was pointing out something strange on her tail to the guy. The hero looked there and saw something. It was a fengluan flower. Chong sighed and called the fox stupid. The flower was a material for developing Alice's moon. It would be useless to him. But this little one didn't listen to him at all and broke free from his hands. As a result, it rushed straight toward Mandy's monster again. Chong was outraged when this happened, because he was talking to it, but it wasn't listening to him at all. The mutant fox is his only option for leveling up. So now he can't let it go. The half-breed was very close to the tail. But at that moment, the huge monster finally broke free from the web that had been hiding it from view. Right in front of him, he saw a small fox using its sharp claws. The hero realized that things were bad, because the monster Mandy was already gathering its strength. The foolish Leaf was too careless, and he had to help him immediately. A moment later, Mandy's monster's power was unleashed, and it was concentrated in one spot where the blue-eyed fox was. When it was over, Chong thought he was too late, but a moment later he heard a squeaky cry. It turned out that the fox had managed to escape with a small amount of money and had not died. It was really close. The small creature used a stone as a step and jumped up before Mandy's monster attacked. The stupid fox couldn't escape Mandy's lightning in midair without anything to hold on to. Chong decided to use the web again, while the stupid fox was picking the flower. At that moment, Mandy's monster noticed him. This is really bad. He's furious, and that's a sign of trouble. So the hero shouted for the little fox to get out of the way immediately. A moment later, it became clear that he wouldn't make it in time. The boy rushed toward the little fox, because if lightning struck him, he would surely die. The stupid fox himself was devastated that his flower was gone again. Mandy was already ready to attack. A few moments later, black lightning struck all around him. The power he used was visible from a great distance. After the attack, the huge monster remained furious for some time. But when it realized that nothing was bothering it and nothing was threatening it, it calmed down. It simply went on its way. The Fenluan flower on its tail was destroyed. The small blue-eyed fox was very sad. Chumu asked him not to be upset. If it weren't for his quick reaction, he wouldn't have been able to pull him away in time. Otherwise, they would both have turned to ash. But the fox continued to cry. He was very sad. Suddenly, he saw a small leaf in front of him. The boy said he had grabbed one leaf for him. The little blue-eyed fox was delighted. He immediately rushed toward the little leaf to eat it. And when he did, a transformation began instantly. Chumu froze in awe, watching what was happening. He saw a strange transformation. Could it be a double mutation? That was indeed what he was thinking. From a low-ranking fire cloud fox to a high-ranking moonlight cloud fox. Could it be that he possesses personal potential for mutation? Chumu extended his hand with the summoning bracelet. He offered to sign a contract with it and become stronger together. The fox wasn't against it at all and didn't even resist. As a sign of agreement, he extended his paw toward the young man. As a result, their contract began to take effect. And after a short time, the fourth spiritual contract was successfully concluded. Chumu gave his pet a name. Now he is called Mo Ye. Upon returning to the others, the main character was laughed at. It was simply embarrassing that he had managed to become a noble lady. Wasn't he afraid that they would laugh at him for capturing a girl's pet? Chumu was angry and did not respond to all the shouts. He noticed that Zhou Shengmo had a confident look on his face. He must have managed to capture a high-ranking pet, so the guy had better get ready and stay alert. Among all the main characters, Ting Yu was the one who had been waiting the longest. She was delighted that he had finally returned. She knew that everything would be fine with him. The young man felt as if they had only been apart for a few days. But why did he have the feeling that she had become even more beautiful? Perhaps he was hallucinating. The girl grabbed his hand and suggested they go with her. She wanted to show him the pet she had caught. She had spent a lot of effort to catch it. When they left, Zhou ordered his subordinate to go. He also informed him that this person had called Zhang Luo. Chumu and his shadow were in the slave camp. The girl stroked the little forest, wondering what its name was, and how pleasantly it was rubbing against her. The hero, in turn, noted that the new flower was also quite nice. The flower demon is a control type. It would be bad to encounter him in the first qualifying competition. Tin Yu reported that her pet was indeed quite good. It was already at the 4th level. Despite its appearance, it was stronger than all the slave-ranked spirit pets on the entire island. This could be called a winning starting point. The guy confirmed this. All precise demons have an additional effect, making their master's face beautiful and improving their physique. After all, it's no wonder she looks like a different person. The girl said that she had become stronger in order to increase her chances of advancing to the next level. Would he now like to join her? An awkward pause ensued between them, and suddenly something moved on the guy's collar. It turned out to be the very caterpillar he had been dragging through the forest. Tin Yu, seeing it, was frightened and started screaming loudly. She demanded that Chumu quickly get rid of it. That thing could warm up the bed and break it. The guy was surprised that it had decided to show itself. The caterpillar began to make noises in its own language. While the guy was trying to figure out what was going on, the girl invited him to come closer. She told him that Moye's paw was injured. Chumu couldn't believe it. Judging by the tracks, he had been struck by lightning in the forbidden forest. The girl asked him to hurry and send him to the spirit pet realm. This would have a miraculous effect on the healing of his own pet. Chumu realized that he had been careless, as he had forgotten to check his wound. Any unintentional injury could affect his condition. While the guy was thinking about this, he had already used his own space. Ting Yu also found herself there and was surprised that he had such a space. Then she saw that your energy had spread to the little fox. The spirit pet then soared into the sky. It took its place where it was supposed to be extracted. After what happened, the hero simply decided to come forward. The girl asked in surprise if he really had another spiritual pet. Chumu told her that he did indeed have another one. It had been a gift from his mother before he was kidnapped and sent to the island. Tin Yu remarked that his mother had been so kind to him. But why did he look as if there was no one there? The boy didn't answer, just looked ahead sadly. A moment later, he felt his caterpillar moving again. Judging by the appearance, it seemed to be a stress reaction of the insect's spiritual beast. It only happened when danger was near. Danger was indeed approaching the main character's room. An unfamiliar guy entered and told the one called Chumu to get out of there. The main character did not know who had come to him. He had to leave his own spiritual space in order to return to the island. He ordered the stranger to give his name and tell him why he had come there. The stranger was surprised, wondering if he was trying to act tough by protecting the girl. It was surprising that he didn't know him, but let him remember the name of his grandfather, Zhang, and his surname, Luo. Ting said she saw him with Zhou Shengmo. The two seemed to be good friends. The hero was indignant again, saying that this man was picking on him. Zhang asked him not to worry, he came here to avoid trouble. He had come to him for nothing more than an honest duel. At that moment, he summoned his spiritual pet, the centipede. Chong Mei wouldn't refuse this duel, would he? Ting Yu called him shameless. He was deliberately provoking him. His centipede was only at the 2nd level. Chong Mei had a 1st-level moonlight fox. So what was so interesting about that? His companion smiled and said that high risk often brings good rewards. After saying this, he took out a strange object, drawing attention to himself. He said that it was a beast soul core. It was a 3rd-level soul core. Let the guy think about it carefully. This core is very well suited for his pet, so if he defeats it, the soul core will belong to him. Tell him to come to the cave behind the mountain in 2 days. After that, Zhang left the room. The girl asked Chong Mei what he thought about it. He noted that there was nothing to talk about. Of course, he was going to fight. His companion objected that his spiritual pet was stronger than his. Mo Ye was still very weak and would not be able to handle it. Zhou Shengmo had most likely picked on him because of her. Before his return, he had wanted to win her over, but she had refused. Chong Mei said that at first he had been unable to defeat him. If it weren't for her, they would have been disgusted by him. He also took her concerns into account. The core of the beast's soul would be very helpful in Mo Ye's advancement, and he couldn't let it slip away. Moreover, the competition would be fiercer in the final matches, and increasing combat power was of greater importance. In addition, he has 2 days he can devote to training Mo Ye. He believes in his spiritual pet. Tin Yu agreed and wished him luck. If he needed help, he should come to her. The guy thanked her for her help. Then he turned his attention to the caterpillar. This little creature has the ability to sense danger and could prove very useful. A short time later, the young man went into the forest to train. There, he directed his spiritual pet to attack for the 78th time. The little rice used its claws to tear at its target. This blow was not particularly deadly, but the hero praised his pet. He realized that the attack's power was still insufficient. Mo Ye's claws only had 1st-level attack power. They couldn't even break through ordinary defensive skin, let alone a 2nd-level 10-legged centipede. The spirit pet sat sadly, realizing that it was not strong enough. The hero approached him and praised him. He had done a great job, and training was over for the day, but the pet had no intention of giving up just yet. He darted past his master like a bullet, and continued to attack the tree with all his might with his claws. Chong Mei was glad that he still refused to admit defeat. Suddenly, the guy heard Ting Yu's voice. She suggested they have lunch. Chong Mei, you must have forgotten about food because of your training. The guy was surprised to see her and asked why she was there. The girl noted that because of the spiritual pet that had appeared, it was now much easier to get food. That's why she came to feed him. The hero thanked her for her concern. Soon, she saw something in the basket that made her blush. It was half-eaten food. Tin Yu apologized, saying she just had a big appetite and couldn't help herself. The hero replied that it was no big deal and continued eating. Food in a slave camp is always obtained through competition. Ting Yu must have had to put in a lot of effort to get the food, and she didn't want it to go to waste. While the guy was eating, his companion noticed his spiritual pet. It seemed that today's training was not going as smoothly as usual. Chong Mei explained that Mo Ye's claws were still in their early stages. If he wanted to defeat the 10-legged centipede Zhang Luo, he might have to think of another way. However, he had other skills that could be used. For example, pity and charm. The girl was surprised, not understanding what these abilities were. The hero explained that pity was a unique skill. The Fox of Moonlight feigned weakness, weakening the enemy's will to fight against someone weak and fragile. The spiritual pet used this skill. Charm, on the other hand, is an illusion that can temporarily confuse an opponent. It is used to facilitate a hidden attack, induce a state of relaxation, and so on. It deals a devastating blow to the opponent. Tin Yu rejoiced that my chances of victory had increased. In her joy, she didn't even notice that she had gotten too close to the guy. Their attention was soon drawn to a fox that had finally destroyed the tree. The hero was delighted that Mo Ye's claws were becoming sharper and sharper. As expected of a mutant spiritual pet, the more it is cornered, the greater the miraculous effect for advancement. Chong Mei remembers how Mo Ye ate a petal from the Fenluan flower before mutating into a moonlight fox. Does this mean that mutant pets need twice as many resources to develop? Perhaps this is one of the reasons why the pet mutated at the time of advancement. The guy quickly ran up to Ting Yu and grabbed her hand, saying he had an urgent question. Did she know where to get resources for the development of spirit pets that they could eat? The girl was confused by his behavior. She said that as far as she remembered, there was a wild medicinal forest on the island, just to the left of the forbidden forest. Hearing this information, the guy quickly ran there. If he could collect more Fenluan flowers, it would help him advance quickly. Ting Yu was surprised. Would he really stop eating them? The hero simply told her to give the rest to his spiritual pet. He had to go about his business, so she should take care of him. The girl told the fox that his master was very kind to him. After some time, night fell. Why were these medicinal herbs supposed to help his pet, and what was their purpose? He noted that he would finish soon, and that the fox would have to wait a little longer. The girl left the room and said that if Chong Mei made noise in the middle of the night, he might get beaten up. I wonder what he's doing at such a late hour. Her hero replied that he had gone to get medicine for the children and not to touch the flowers of Fenluan. Now he had ground them into powder and given it to his spiritual pet. Ting knew these flowers. They were useful. Although judging by his condition, he must have suffered. But why did he feed him so much? You can't feed them as much as you want. The spiritual pet soon felt that something was wrong with him. The girl became alarmed by his condition, but the guy asked her not to worry. Just keep an eye on him. The guy's spiritual pet and its claws started to grow. Chong Mei arrived at the cave at the appointed time. There he was met by Zhang, who was surprised that the guy had come. He had thought that he wouldn't dare to come. The hero pointed out that he hadn't said it was a duel between pets. So, would the spirit pet masters not fight? His companion explained that they would not fight, of course. They would simply be observers of their battle. He had not broken his promise, and he hoped that Chong Mei would not break his either. The young man was surprised that Zhou Shengmo had not come. Did he really think there was no point in coming to watch him lose? These guys said that Chong Mei might not be so vigilant. Even if something happened, they would not interfere. Although they did not think so about spiritual pets. Zhang asked if the main character despised him. Let him look here. The winner would be able to take this soul core with him. One of the guys pointed out to his brother Tang Xian that he had only brought one of his moonlight spirits here. Wasn't that a joke? The fat guy said that it was true. Wasn't he capable of summoning the blue nightmare? His comrade objected that he was incapable of doing so. With his level of soul power, he could only summon the nightmare once. However, according to his understanding, Chong Mei was too hasty in bringing out the first-level Moonlight Fox into battle. Perhaps he had some kind of trump card up his sleeve. Zhang was ready to fight at that moment. He summoned his soul. It was the second spiritual contract of the 10-legged centipede. A large, powerful creature appeared right in front of the main character's spiritual pet, which was very small. The guy wondered, didn't this person show it last time? Now he had wasted a special summon, wasting his soul power. He didn't understand why he was doing this. The opponent ordered the spiritual pet to paint him properly. It was Tyson's skill, Sweeping Tail. The main character's pet was able to recover from this attack. But that was far from all, because next, the centipede used a speed attack. It was pretty fast, but the moon foxes handled it. After that, it ended up behind its enemy. He began to attack it quickly, trying to pierce it with his small claws. Zhang Lo stood aside and simply watched what was happening. He thought that it wouldn't be easy if this little thing wanted to pierce the centipede's tough scales. It would need to strike at least 50 times, but with the fox's agility, that was simply impossible. Suddenly, Chong Mei shouted for Mo Ye to attack from below at the belly and dodge in defensive positions. His pet obeyed and began to do so, but the centipede began to crawl down. The guys on Zhang Lo's side were getting restless. Zhang had expected him to do that. Tyson had already created an underground shelter on his orders. The fat man said that was great. Insect-like pets are good at hidden attacks. Once they reveal themselves, they can kill their opponent with a single blow. Lady Chu's spiritual pet will have to run, and if it doesn't run, it will be too late. The hero listened as they laughed at his pet. They said it would become food. The guys were outraged by this. He also felt that the caterpillar was a close friend, warning him of approaching danger. Running around in circles would only give the enemy's pet more opportunities to attack. Therefore, it was better not to move at all at this time. If something happened, then something would have to be done. At that moment, Zhang sensed a strange smell. He was surprised and asked what the smell was. It sounded fragrant. There was someone there, and he needed to check what had happened. The fat man saw that something was wrong and asked him what was wrong. What was he thinking? Was he tired of living? The guy said that he thought he heard a voice and smelled something calling him to come closer. The guy realized that something was wrong with Zhang, so he shouted that something strange was going on. But no matter how much he shouted, he couldn't get through to him. In the end, Zhang simply said that he seemed to have lost control of Tisun. A powerful spiritual energy spread throughout the cave. Zhang, confused, reported that something had happened. He felt something strange inside himself, but he couldn't explain what it was. What was his spiritual pet doing? What had happened? Tisun would not have come out without his order. When the centipede appeared, the hero shouted to his spiritual pet to attack. Let it use its claws right now. The moon fox immediately obeyed his master's command and managed to break through the centipede's defense. Zhang and all his companions were in utter shock at what had happened. How was it possible that this small pet could break through his defense? The young man ran in terror toward his spiritual pet. Why did this happen, and how? Broken fox bones don't even have 80% of their strength. But how did it manage to deliver a fatal blow to Tessie? The fat man asked if his eyes were deceiving him, if the centipede had come out to meet its death. Even those tearing claws didn't look like the strength of a first-rank moonlight fox. Zhou's subordinate wondered what technique Chu Mu had used. None of them had noticed anything. Their attention at that moment was simply perfect. After the preliminaries, a real disaster would occur. He needed to discuss everything carefully with Zhou's brother. At that moment, the hero praised his spiritual pet. They got away with it, but if it weren't for Tixon's momentary disorientation due to Mo Ye's charm, he could have been in danger. Most likely, they have no idea what happened. Although Mo Yo is a first-rank martial artist, he has trained his claws to second-rank level. The guy added an extra trick to his charm skill. They probably didn't even notice it. The fat man told Chu Mu not to get cocky, that they weren't angry with him. Soon they became wary when the guy started walking toward them. In their confusion, they even started begging him not to come closer. The fat guy hadn't agreed to fight him, so he shouldn't come any closer. Out of fear, the guy even closed his eyes. But soon he realized that nothing had happened and opened them again. The main character simply walked past and said he was going to collect what he deserved. He didn't understand why the guy was so scared. Did Chu Mu sense that the caterpillar was scared? Was danger approaching? The guys shouted that something was definitely wrong with Zhang Luo. It was clear that he was very angry. One of Zhou's subordinates realized what was happening. Their friend began to emit a corresponding energy. It seemed as if the energy of a nightmare was leaving his body. In the end, that's exactly what happened. The guy was flattened in an instant. As a result, a blue nightmare appeared. Several guys were terrified by the blue nightmare that suddenly emerged from Zhang Luo's body. Their partner explained that the blue nightmare had grown to the 3rd rank. Their comrades could no longer draw on the power of their own souls. This meant that the nightmare had driven Zhang Luo's soul out of his body. A moment later, workers appeared. They ordered them to get out of the way. The enforcers were just doing their job. Another loser, unable to control his own nightmare, had given up. The man asked them to wait. First, let the nightmare suck his soul out completely. It would be a waste to let it go to waste. The girl agreed and opened a strange bottle. Then she cast a special spell, and the power of the nightmare gradually began to evaporate right into the bottle. The performer was curious to see who the nightmare would start to parasitize next. Then he turned to the other guys. They dared to settle personal scores here. He would report them to Commander Sia, and they would get what they deserved. Soon, all the participants were punished in the toilet. They were outraged by the stench that was present there. Officials always have the stinkiest shit, and most importantly, they were outraged that they had so much free time to swear. They should be working instead. Why were they even assigned to this duty? This was a personal dispute between Chu Mu and Zhang Luo. Why should it concern them? The fat man noted that if Dr. Johnny had sent them to watch the fight, they would now be in his place. He was also confused by the chopped onion. Where did it come from? Its top was right in front of his eyes. The leader of the group noticed the main character. He won, so why does he look so gloomy, as if he saw a ghost? Was he really that scared of the blue nightmare? Or is he just a coward? Chu Mu thought that the 3rd-rank nightmare was already scary enough. The white nightmare inside his body would also reach the 3rd rank very soon. If things continued like this, he would end up like Zhang Luo, or perhaps even worse, but he wanted to live. In order to win the qualifying competition, he had to defeat Xia Guanghan. He simply had to become stronger. First stage servant, 6th rank Moonlight Fox. First stage servant, 7th rank Thornflower Demon. Tin Yu was disappointed that her spirit pet had lost again. Her flower was 1 rank higher than his Moon Fox. It was all charm and pitifulness, and the pet wasn't even capable of fighting. The hero noted that they didn't hold each other back with her flower demon. It was actually quite difficult to handle. By the way, The selection day was in 5 days. Could the girl tell him about other people's pets? She noted that all he did was cultivate and train his pet, and therefore, he was completely uninterested in news from outside. Sooner or later, it would come back to haunt him. Chong Mei replied casually that it didn't matter because she was with him. The girl simply told him not to talk nonsense and blushed. In general, within a month, most of the pets had already made progress. Among them, Tang Xian's pet had reached the first stage of the 8th rank. He was among the 5 strongest in terms of strength. The stone demon Feng Gu reached the 8th rank of the first stage and is among the 5 strongest. And now she admits that Zhou Shengmo is the strongest. His spiritual pet, a hunting wolf, is the strongest creature of the 8th rank. Why did he think that Zhou almost killed him before he lost his servant? Next time, he will finish him off. Tian also said that there was only 1 week left before the qualifying competitions. Therefore, she suggested that they intensify their training. The guy asked her to train by herself for now. Moya's resources for practice had run out, so he set off for the healing forest. His companion noted that if he found anything valuable, he should not forget to bring something back for her. After that, the hero said goodbye to her and set off on his journey. After his long wanderings, night fell. Chong Mei was happy because everything bad was very good. These resources should last him for several days. Suddenly his pet began to grow angry, and it became clear that someone was approaching. Several dark figures were talking to each other. It was strange that they had entered here a long time ago. But why hadn't they left yet? His companion asked him to wait, because it wasn't easy to deal with the fire-tailed creature. Chong Mei hid so as not to attract unnecessary attention. These were Zhou's subordinates. They were talking about how their leader wanted a 3rd spirit pet, a 9th rank firetail. Although it wasn't certain that he would be able to catch it, the fat man even envied Zhou's brother. He had managed to quickly raise his spirit pet to the 9th rank, and he also wanted to get a 3rd of his pet. The hero thought that every time the owner of spiritual pets gained the power of 3 pets, he could capture another pet. Zhou Shengmo would most likely be the first person to get 3 spiritual pets. The fat man kicked his partner. What was he talking about? If their leader heard what he was saying, he would be killed. His companion was indignant about the qualifying competitions, because there were still 5 days left. When Zhou Shengmo caught the fire-tailed beast, he would definitely win. But what about their lives? His partner explained that his brother had told him that once he caught the fire-tailed bird, he would kill everyone except them. That way they would easily pass the qualifying competition. His companion didn't believe it. He wasn't such a kind person. Would he care about them when he was on the verge of death? Suddenly they both smelled something strange. The fat man shouted at him not to sniff it. The smoke was strange. When Zhao Luo and Chong Mei were fighting, this thing killed his spirit pet as soon as it appeared. Lost in thought, he saw his comrade being killed, and it was the moonlight spirit pet that did it. The guy was scared and confused, asked who did it. It was the main character, informing them that their plan would never come to fruition. The fat man was outraged. Could it be Chong Mei again? He would not let his comrade's death go unpunished. Therefore, he used the 2nd spiritual contract of the stone monster. He ordered his pet, who had appeared, to kill the guy. Chong Mei said that they would see who would kill whom. He forced Moya to use his heart-rending claws. The pet did so without question, but the stone monster immediately defended itself. His body was completely unharmed by the blow. The fat man laughed, saying that his stone monster's defense had reached the 7th rank. Wasn't he afraid of embarrassing himself with his attack power? He then ordered the stone monster to use a split. This technique allowed the creature to split itself into small stones. All these small particles were directed toward the enemy's spiritual monster. After that, the fat man ordered the stone monster to use the path, and the stones began to gradually come together. It seemed as if the spiritual nourishment from the main character was sealed inside this stone vessel. His opponent asked if he liked it. His flimsy body was crushed into a meat sauce. There was no reaction. Why did he look so indifferent? Didn't he understand? Confused, the fat man ordered the stone monster to use its disintegration ability. To his regret, he saw that the stone block was empty. But where was that damn fox? Suddenly, he saw the main character's pet rushing toward his spiritual pet. He ordered the stone monsters to attack immediately. Although the attack achieved its goal, something was wrong. Could it be a fake? Chong Mei simply asked me to stop playing around and finish the job quickly. The moon fox became more serious after that. The stone monsters, as usual, decided to attack him. The fat man called the fox an idiot. He couldn't even break a stone fist, let alone his strong stomach. However, what he saw next shocked him. The forest easily destroyed his stone monster. The fat man was speechless. Confused, he fell to the ground, asking how this was even possible. How could a 6th-rank Moonlight Fox break through the defense of a 7th-rank monster? The main character's spiritual pet was carefree. The hero said that he had been training his spiritual pet for a whole month. Does he seriously believe that Mo Ye is ranked 6th? His opponent suggested that those claws were at least 8th rank. That meant his spirit pet was much stronger. The fat man stood up and started running. He had to warn Brother Joe immediately. The fox turned its attention to its master, hinting that he should not let him go. The hero ordered him to go ahead and not let him make a sound. After that, the spirit pet went to finish what it had started, and Chumu thought that Zhou Shengmo would be next. At that moment, the guy was not far from there. He was hunting the 3rd fire-tailed spirit monster. The guy ordered his spiritual pets not to let the fire-tailed monster escape. Zhou Shengmo suddenly heard something. He told his partner that he could hear footsteps coming from the forest. His companion asked if he had heard wrong. Li Cheng and Ma Ji were standing guard outside. Therefore, no one should have entered. Zhou asked Luo Chen to go and check the surroundings just in case. If he noticed even the slightest movement, he was to report it immediately. Did the young man agree? He found it strange that footsteps could be heard in the forest in the middle of the night. He hoped it wasn't the driving. Luo Chen mounted his pet and set off. There was indeed movement in the bushes, and soon there was a bright flash. The guy was scared and asked the tree demon to save him. The demon obeyed its master's command and covered him with its wooden limbs. Seeing what had happened, Luo Chen realized that if the claw had struck deeper, he would already be dead. So he asked who was there. Let him come out, since he was so skilled. It was the main character, who immediately came out of the bushes. He announced that he was the one who would take his life. Luo Chen couldn't believe it. It was Chumu. At that moment, several spiritual pets were fighting the fire-tailed beast. One of them managed to inflict serious damage on the spiritual pet. As a result, the fire-tailed beast simply fell to the ground, exhausted. The guy was delighted that it was a victory. Shenmo, of course, was also happy that they had finally finished. All that remained was to sign the spiritual contract, and the 9th-rank fire-tailed beast would belong to him. Finally, it was time to sign the contract. Suddenly, a strange noise and a scream came from the forest. His partner reported that it was Chen's voice. The leader ordered everyone to be vigilant because someone was coming toward them. But because of the darkness, they couldn't tell who it was. They had to wait a little while, and soon they saw that it was Chumu with his pet. Tang immediately ordered his spiritual pet, the steel-toothed beast, to tear him apart. Since Chumu had appeared here, it meant that Luo Chen and the others had been killed. He had to die for this. The steel-toothed beast rushed into attack. Chumu ordered his pet to use the Shadow Moon clone. The enemy spiritual creature destroyed that clone. It was surprised why the little fox had vanished. Tang shouted that his spiritual pet was an idiot for attacking him from above. Using this trick, Mo Yi attacked from above with heart-rending claws. Since the enemy's spiritual beast had noticed the attack, it used its steel teeth to grab hold. As a result, the two spirit pets collided. A loud noise rang out. Tan didn't understand what the noise was. His eardrums were about to burst from the pressure. The spirit pets soon landed. Mo Yi continued his attack, using his charm skill. The young man found this amusing, as if the charm skill of some insignificant fox would work on his 8th-rank steel teeth. The guy's spirit pet didn't fall for the trick and attacked. He managed to grab the moon fox in his mouth. Tan rejoiced, thinking that the steel-toothed beast would tear it to shreds right now. Chumu didn't lose his composure at all. He ordered the use of a soul skill. It was the pet's charm. And so the charm energy, which had already killed many spiritual spirits, was released. This time, the enemy's spiritual pet was engulfed by this energy. Confused, Tan asked what was happening. Let the steel-toothed beast bite the neck of this creature immediately. The main character simply ordered his pet to carry out his wishes. And in the end, the thick neck of the steel-toothed creature was bitten through. The winner of this bloodthirsty duel was once again the moon fox. The guy was terrified that the steel-toothed creature could be dead. It was simply impossible. The saddest thing was that she was waiting for him a little further away. Why was he already standing in front of him and telling him not to worry? Because he was going to send him after him. Thus, the guy in front of him was killed. Zhou Shengmo just watched as his subordinate was killed. He thought about the soul skill, as well as charm and pets. In his opinion, Chumu was no longer a soul disciple, but a warrior. The ability to use soul skills only appears after becoming a soul warrior. The hero said that this guy had learned this too late, but the enemy released his spiritual pet, a wolf. Shenmo smiled and asked what was the big deal. He shouldn't forget that a nightmare was parasitizing his body, and using the skill once was his limit. Chumu objected that it would be enough for Mo Ye to defeat him. Zhou couldn't believe that it would be enough. It was just a lousy 6th-rank spiritual pet. Even if its skills were good, it would still be trash. The guy ordered his spiritual pet to deal with the boiling slowly. His spiritual pet used a fierce attack of a mad wolf. When this happened, the main character ordered Mo Ye to use a shadow clone. Thanks to this skill, the wolf couldn't attack the fox, but it moved quite quickly and attacked again and again. However, it still couldn't harm the moon fox. However, one blow reached its target, and Mo Ye was thrown back. The main character realized that his wolf was capable of delivering 6 blows at once. Joe asked if he hadn't expected that. His wolf was capable of delivering more than 4 blows. His lousy pet was no match for him. Now they would see how he could dodge this attack this time. The mad wolf attacked again, and Mo Ye had to run away. Joe shouted at the wolf not to stop under any circumstances. Let it continue attacking and tear that beast to pieces. From the blows he had received, it was clear that Mo Ye's body was bleeding. The main character realized that this was bad. A hungry 8th rank wolf has the most indomitable fighting spirit. If he continued to run around, Mo Ye would quickly run out of breath, and he needed to stop as soon as possible. That's why Chumu ordered his spirit pet to attack the belly. The weakest spot of beast-type spirit pets is usually in the lower abdomen. Therefore, one blow to that spot is enough to turn defeat into victory. The spirit pet obeyed its master and tried to attack, but it was unable to break through the defense of this mad wolf. On the contrary, it lost its concentration and received a powerful blow. Joe reported that the claws of Chumu's crappy fox had reached the maximum of the middle stage, and the skin of his hunting wolf had long been in the late defensive stage. Probably, this was just his way of scratching his belly. Chumu thought about it. When Mo Ye first started training, ordinary creatures' claws didn't cause serious damage, he said. However, the moonfox was stubborn, and with his countless attacks, he was still able to hit his target. If one strike wasn't enough, he would have to try several times until he was at full strength. Therefore, the guy ordered his spiritual pet not to retreat, to attack and defend itself. The moonfox obeyed his orders without question. Joe asked why it had stopped struggling. Had he ever seen tickling lead to death? The guy objected, saying that maybe it could or maybe it couldn't, but it was worth checking. Once again, Mo Ye attacked the wolf furiously. It seemed as if everything was normal and there were no wounds, but soon it appeared on the wolf's body and blood formed. Joe was surprised at what had happened. That damn fox had hit him. The moon fox continued to attack relentlessly. Although its blows were not very strong, there were many of them. With its persistence, it tried to achieve success. Joe realized that things were going badly. The Moonlight Fox's attack speed was increasing, and it was delivering continuous combo strikes. Soon, the number of combo strikes reached 200. The guy shouted at his crazy wolf to resist, because right now it was only taking hits. His spiritual pet obeyed him and began to release a lot of energy. As a result, his defense increased many times over. After what happened, the spiritual pets froze in place. They had both lost a lot of strength, and it was difficult to fight. Joe was outraged. How the hell was this fox able to unleash such enormous power? No wonder Chumu had chosen her. He had miscalculated by underestimating her. Chumu asked if he now knew that one could be tickled to death. His opponent didn't understand why he was being so cocky. The winner wasn't clear yet, and the outcome was still uncertain. Chumu indicated that he was indeed unyielding to the very end. A moment later, the mark on his hand began to glow. His spirit pet raised its head and began to howl at the moon. As a result, Chumu removed his mercy mode, and Mo Ye had already reached the 9th rank. Joe was terrified. Was this really the 9th rank? The 6th rank aura emanating from this fox was an illusion. To confuse the others, he had kept his fox in mercy mode the entire time. If this continued, no one would be able to know his true strength before the competition began. What a cunning plan. The spiritual beasts continued to stand in anticipation of the fight between them. Joe thought about what to do next. He hadn't lost yet. Soon, the mark on his hand also began to glow, and he released his energy. As a result, his spiritual pet was also strengthened. The wolf became much larger and more ferocious in appearance. Joe knew what this skill was. Bloodlust was the red blood mode of a hunting wolf. Joe Sheno decided on a desperate move, having done such a thing. He ordered his mad wolf to use the shadow grab. After that, the monster rushed at full speed toward the moon fox. The moon fox, in turn, used shadow cloning out of habit to confuse the enemy. But now he couldn't escape and was captured by the shadow grab. This power was strong enough to squeeze his leg, causing Moya to scream in pain. Due to the effect of this skill, he soon fell to the ground. The main character couldn't just leave it at that, so he threw his dagger, which inflicted a serious wound on the hunting wolf. But he couldn't destroy it, he only made it angrier. After that, the monster turned around and attacked the guy himself. He killed him in his sleep, and Chumu had to defend himself with his hands. Zhou Shengmo was very pleased with this situation, hoping that Chumu would die quickly. The bloodthirsty skill gradually began to fade away. Without it, he was still a dangerous enemy and continued to attack. In a critical situation, the hero simply thought he needed to hold on a little longer.